Good evening. Welcome to Strange Bedfellows, episode 34. I am Lori Spencer. Rick Walker will be here shortly. I think he's still on the air with Maverick News right now. But tonight we have an international panel joining us from four different countries, which is pretty cool. You got me here in the United States in Oklahoma, where we're having severe storms and tornadoes tonight. So you might get some tornado siren sound effects. Hopefully, not any tornado sound effects. We got Rick Walker up in Canada who will be joining us. And we're also welcoming back all the way from South Africa our friend Naomi Allen. She's a history blogger and a self described proud Zionist. She argues that Israel's war against Hamas is justified and that the protests erupting at college campuses worldwide are celebrations of anti-Semitism. And you might remember last time Naomi was with us on episode 28, she predicted something kind of chilling. She said that a second Holocaust could be coming, and she said that it would start in New York City, which I found intriguing at the time. And now I find it even more intriguing because right now in New York City, we have four large anti-Israel campus demonstrations in full swing. And that's more than any other city in the United States. We're going to talk about that tonight. And Naomi will also explain why she thinks this is a dangerous trend that's not good for the country or the world. Also joining us tonight is our Maverick News correspondent in Crimea, Kevin Michelizzi. We're going to talk about the other war in his neck of the woods, and that $60 billion aid package passed by Congress and signed by President Biden this week, and how this influx of more money and more weapons affects the ongoing war in Ukraine. So without further ado, let me bring in my friends from all around the world. Let's bring in Kevin. Good morning, Kevin. I think it's 4 o'clock in the morning there?
It is a little after 4.
Yep, you got your coffee. You starting to wake up. This is your morning show. It's our late night Saturday show here.
I'm actually drinking vitamin C.
Oh, yum. And Naomi is back. Hello, dear. It's 3 o'clock in the morning in South Africa. Remind everybody where exactly you are in South Africa.
KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu-Natal. I have no idea where that is in South Africa.
Need a map?
I do. I mean, like you, Kevin, when you come on the show, you've literally got a backdrop, a map of exactly where you are, and you can show us where the bridge is and where the latest strikes are, and it's pretty fancy.
I usually do, yeah.
I kind of don't want people to know exactly where I am because those Ukrainians are still after me.
I think Kevin can relate to that.
I can a little bit.
Well, Crimea is an interesting place, isn't it, Kevin? Because you live in disputed territory. Some think of it as Ukraine, some think of it as Russia, and you've got people loyal to both sides all around you, your neighbors, your friends.
Yeah, and, it's fine when you can tell who's on what side, but often you cannot. So you may have somebody with Russian citizenship, Russian license plates on their cars, and they're still very much anti-Russia. And for me, it really, is it Russia? Is it Ukraine? Reality is the Russian government's in charge. I've been here when the Ukrainian government was in charge. So,
right. Yeah. You've had it both ways over the last, 10 years that you've been over there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my wife actually had a student of English that was going to move to Canada, and he was taking English lessons from her, and one day he invited her to join the anti-Russia, pro-Ukraine side, and before we got our throats cut when the Ukrainians liberated the peninsula. So We can say,
Well, you know, it must be strange being in that position. I try to imagine it sometimes, but since you're both American expats living in far flung reaches of the globe, I've always been curious to ask you when you look at the United States today and everything that's happening, the election, the various prosecutions of a former president, the college campus protests, everything that's going on in America. What do you think? Naomi, let me start with you. What do you think of America these days?
I mean, I don't even recognize it anymore. Seriously. And I'm glad I'm not there. I don't know what else to say.
And
Except
you've been gone
it's just weird.
For how many
year
years
now.
have you been gone? About a year?
A year and a half, something like
A
that.
lot can change in a year.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's surprising. It's amazing to me that I don't feel like I've been away that long, but things are just unrecognizable to me anymore. I feel like America has lost their collective minds.
That's funny. That's exactly how I feel, and I live here. But you know, in the place where I live, I live in the heartland of America, right here in Oklahoma, dead center of the United States. And politically, I would say I'm pretty dead center in the United States. You don't see a lot of extreme groups here. It's people are generally sane. Like right now, we don't have any of these pro-Hamas protests going on at any of our college campuses. This is a very red state, very pro-Israel, strongly Christian state. So we don't see the madness here that you see in the coastal cities, East and West Coast, you know? There are still some sane pockets in America. Is what I'm trying to
Well, that's a
reassure
relief.
you. I'm
you
trying to
are the
reassure you.
heartland, Lori.
I like it that way. I've lived on the coasts. I wouldn't want to go back to California. And, you know, I mean, I'm not Jewish, but I know that, you know, Naomi, last time we talked, you were telling me that you wouldn't want to be in the United States right now if you were Jewish. And I hear that from a lot of my Jewish friends right now, that they don't feel safe. Some of them live in places like Washington, D.C. and New York and Boston and Southern California. They just don't feel safe anymore. And let me just dive right in here. I'll show you what I mean. This is why they don't feel safe. This is from the protests at Columbia University this week, where a Jewish student who was filming the protesters was surrounded by a group of them saying, you know, Zionists have entered the encampment. You're not wanted here. You're not welcome here.
Attention, everyone. Can I get everyone to form a human chain right here, please? We have Zionists that have entered the camp. Mind check! Repeat after me. We have Zionists. Who have entered the camp. We are going to create a human chain. Where I am standing. So that they do not pass this point. And infringe upon our privacy. And try to disrupt our community.
Ooh, wow. The person leading that chant is a guy, girl, I'm not sure. The pronouns are he, she, they. Yeah. How can you be all three at once? Can anybody explain? How can you be a he, a she, and a they?
Well, I'm invisible, not here and gone.
So this person's name is Kamani James, right? I call her Khomeini James because whether she realizes it or not, she is doing the bidding of the the government of Iran. And that's probably who's behind a lot of the funding of these protests. But, Kamani James, a video of her this week went viral where she's basically saying that Zionists don't have a right to live and that we should be grateful that she hasn't killed any Zionists yet. I know it sounds crazy, but this is totally real. I'll play it for you.
My name is Sasha Wakadaway. I'm one of the associate directors in the Center for Student Success and Intervention.
I'm Kamani James. I use he, she, they pronouns. Zionists in my DM wanting to meet up and fight. I don't fight to injure or for there to be a winner or a loser. I fight to kill. See y'all in New York, January 2024.
So that's specifically what we're going to be discussing today. Do you see why that's problematic in any way?
No.
Do you think that there's a serious weight in taking someone else's life?
I think there is a serious weight in taking someone's life. And at the same time, I think that taking someone's life in certain case scenarios is necessary and better for the overall world. And so I personally have never killed anyone. Thank the Lord that no one has put me in that position. Though when Hitler died, the world rejoiced. Everyone looks back at that time period and said that Hitler needed to die because he was exacting an immense amount of harm against the world. And so just like that, during the Haitian Revolution, their Haitian slaves had to kill their masters in order to gain their independence. These were masters who were white supremacists. What is a Zionist? A white supremacist. And so let's be very clear here. I'm not saying that I'm gonna go out and start killing Zionists. What I'm saying is that if an individual who identifies as a Zionist threatens my physical safety in person, i.e. puts their hands on me, I am going to defend myself. And in that case scenario, it may come to a point where I don't know when to stop. Obviously, the United States would never support the murder of Netanyahu, but imagine how many lives would be saved if, possibly, right? Because we all know that the replacement will probably, but, philosophically speaking, the death of a maniacal genocidist like Netanyahu in Israel, his death would theoretically mean that many people would live. Zionists, they don't deserve to live comfortably, let alone Zionists don't deserve to live.
Okay, Khomeini. I'm going to call her Khomeini. But, I hate to even give that person the attention she craves. And I wouldn't. I would dismiss that as the ravings of a random lunatic, but this person is one of the key organizers there of the Columbia protests, and until Friday was a spokesman and a spokeswoman, spokesperson, actually speaking for the movement. And, there's video circulating you probably saw that AOC and Representative Ilhan Omar of the Squad visited the campus this week, and they were seen hugging Khomeini and shaking hands and hanging out with him. And it turns out that Khomeini, who is set to graduate class of 2025 next year, if she doesn't get suspended, she's temporarily on a break, is what the school said on Friday after this controversy erupted over the video you just watched. And she actually herself has designs on running for Congress and is pretty well connected politically, as a matter of fact. I want to show you something here I don't know if you knew this, but
Is Khomeini going to go to Qatar and find the leaders of Hamas to make sure that they're all made dead so that they can save a lot of lives from genocide that way too? Just
Well,
asking.
better yet-
question.
Yeah, better yet,
That is
Rick.
the
She's
question.
planning to go kill all the Russians too.
Oh, wow. She's got a long list. Gonna
Yeah.
be very
Look at
busy.
And
this.
those
Look
Chinese.
what I found.
Uh-huh.
This is Khomeini's Twitter profile, and that is Khomeini in the picture with none other than Barack Obama, former President Obama. She says, "I'm literally just a pretty princess putting on her lip gloss while she's freeing her brothers and sisters all around the world."
Is she
says.
going to
He
make
says-
him unalive too, since he bombed so many people while he was president? Just
He
asking
bombed a lot of
for
Arabs.
a friend.
Yeah, he killed a lot of Arabs too.
Just asking.
Obama. Okay. So as of Friday, once this controversy erupted, because, again, she was the spokesperson for this pro-Palestinian encampment. It's the Columbia University Apartheid Divest is the name of the group. And she was banned from the campus on Friday, according to a Columbia spokesperson. Now, the organizers of the protest, they're backing away now from Khomeini and saying that, her comments about the Zionists needing to die don't reflect their values. And yet they declined to describe Khomeini's level of involvement with their organization and that demonstration. So, Rick, since you just arrived, I wanted to get your thoughts first. I'll let you chime in.
I don't think it's worth a whole lot of discussion, to be honest, because I think it's just self-apparent what that is. Other people may follow that, but I think maybe they need help too. And sorry for arriving late. I was getting everything kind of dialed in so that the feed would still continue out on our other channels.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Appreciate
that
it.
way
You're
we
so
just keep
smooth.
everything going. But but here I am, and that's what I think of that person.
What do you
know,
think,
Lori-
Naomi? Kevin, you want to go first?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say this actually takes me back to the same sort of people that were behind a blast from the past. How about this one? You recognize this photo?
Yeah,
Kent State
Kent
University.
State.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
very similar thing. This was, I'll term it as tactfully as I can, pinned on the Youth International Party, which supposedly had similar money behind it as these protests supposedly have behind them. So,
Well, they said back then that it was that they were communist front groups, didn't they? Wasn't that what
they
we
said
were told?
lots of things. They had
I don't know
had
if there was
snipers
if it was true,
and-
but
Yeah, I was doing some research on that for my show earlier today, and there were students, there were outside aggressors. The outside aggressors were limited in number, but it was the Yippies, which they said were communists, but that was the Youth International Party, and the leader of the Youth International Party, Jerry Rubin, supposedly made a statement at the time that the first part of the Yippie program is to kill your parents. They're the first oppressors. And, this is what it reminds me of, listening to this crazy woman.
it does me too. And it's strange that the anniversary of Kent State will be this week. Isn't that May 5th?
Isn't that interesting?
1970. Naomi, what do you think?
I think that person needs psychological help, first of all. I'm a little bit worried though, because if his career isn't over, that's a bad thing. But then again, if his career is over, how radical is he? You know, if he's left with nothing left to lose, what is, you know, I'm kind of a little bit worried about that. But yeah, they found out, so that interview that he had with the administration happened in January.
Yeah. So they knew that this guy,
They
gal
teach
was,
this stuff. They teach it.
yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, they have since Edward Said worked there. Started with him. There's this link between post-colonial studies and the DEI stuff and what's going on today, you know? It's just we talked about that the last time. 40 years
Yes.
of indoctrination, you know. Well, it's 75 years of it, you know, whatever. I'm just
Indeed,
And
you've really hit the nail on the head, if I might interject,
Please.
because what's going on in Gaza is not just about Gaza. Naomi has really nailed it. This is a worldwide thing, and it's especially pronounced right here with this anti-colonial, anti-monarchy, anti-West, you know, rhetoric, which, you know, is steeped in. Well, here it's about Turtle Island, right? It's about from the river to the sea. Doesn't even just mean in Gaza. It means land back in the United States, Canada, Central America. They're presenting really a problem that can't be solved, which when presented the way they present it, which I think is honestly part of the problem. The only way to solve it is through some sort of ultimate or final solution, which is what they're calling for. That's the scary thing.
Intifada.
Yes,
They want to
intifada.
globalize the intifada.
Yeah.
They tell you exactly what they're intending to do. They want to globalize the intifada. Now, what do you think that means? Well, ask some of these protesters, and most of them here in the United States anyway, these mindless repeaters, don't know. Look at that.
You guys are shouting for intifada? You know what an intifada is? What is it? What is an intifada? You guys are proud of shouting for intifada? Yeah?
Woo!
Get that cafe out of my face. I'm sorry. I am so tired of seeing these cafes everywhere, and I'm sure that you are too, Naomi.
I just don't understand. You know, these kids, they put America through an identity crisis. Okay? And so everybody's trying not to be part of the oppressor class. You know, most of the kids involved in this are white.
Right. Rich.
And they don't want to
white
be part of
kids.
the privileged white
These are
kids.
elites.
And privileged
These are the
black
kids
kids
of
too. But
elites.
you know, they don't want to be part of the oppressor class, and so they've latched onto this.
They are the oppressor class. Unless, as you said, Kevin, like Jerry Rubin said, that they hate their parents, and their parents are the oppressor class, and they're going to kill their parents.
Yeah, well, you know,
I don't know about this generation of parents.
I don't know that, you know, it's like these kids that they were, you know, just talking to. They have no clue what they're protesting to, which brings us back to the few aggressors behind the scenes. And, you know,
People like Khomeini.
well, no, let's go one better. This is the latest worldwide lay the blame game, but our friend George Soros, you know, he's the money behind all this, supposedly.
A lot
Nobody
of
has any proof. he is Jewish, so does that mean he's anti-Zionist, or does it mean they're just looking for somebody to, blame again? So,
And isn't it more about destabilization? I mean, that's what George Soros seems to be all about when he funded the BLM protests, the Summer of Love in 2020. To me, I consider this a concerted effort to destabilize the governments of the Western civilized countries, if you will, and to start a civil war. At least that's where I see it going.
Yeah, and is he looking to start a civil war in Western governments? Well, let's take a gander at this map from earlier today that tells us exactly where we have these protests breaking out. Now look at that.
Interesting,
U.S.,
yeah.
Western Europe, Australia. They don't have a star on Canada.
Oh, they're all over.
Oh, it's
Canada.
all over the place up
Yeah,
here,
I
and I'll
know.
tell you, we're
It's a
at
hot
the forefront of we're in play, man.
Yeah, getting worse every day.
Yes.
You know where it's
Isn't
not
that
happening?
interesting?
It's not happening in South Africa.
I was going to ask.
Nope. Not happening
Sorry.
in South Africa.
Yeah, it's not happening in Russia either.
The storm just
We have
knocked
hate
my
speech
camera
laws here.
offline.
We have hate speech laws here, so they can't get away with this kind of crap here.
Interesting.
Plus-
and they actually enforce your hate speech laws because they don't
Yes.
enforce them here.
Yes, you should see people on WhatsApp groups here, somebody says something that could be interpreted as hate speech, they'll threaten each other with filing a criminal suit against them and stuff like that. So, yeah, people are very careful about how they say things here. Even, just about each other. Defamation is a crime. A criminal
don't-
offense.
A crime.
Not a civil offense here, too.
Interesting.
But it's
Yeah, we don't quite-
it's sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I was going to say we don't go quite that far here, but we take a lot of heat from the West for enforcing those same laws. No hate speech here, and doesn't matter who it's against. If you do it, social media, news, whatever, you
Same
are
here.
charged criminally.
In
The other thing is, South Africa is largely Christian, and a different type of Christianity than you see in North America. So the Christians here stand with Israel. So people are talking now that the ANC is going to lose their majority in the next election, and they're going to have to form a coalition government. But they will lose. They will definitely lose their majority power, and nobody ever thought that would happen. But this is the red line. This is the red line they've crossed.
Well, then there is some hope, at least in South Africa. I'm hoping our politicians come to their senses. What if someone like
also,
James
Islam
gets elected to Congress?
I don't know, but also in Africa, Islamic terrorism is something that's very real to the people here. So in America, they don't freaking know what that means.
Right.
They don't understand. They don't know that the Islamists are up here murdering people every day, burning down villages. It's a real threat here. It's not a video game to the people here.
But see, these protests, they are all centered on countries where you have what they would view as colonial rule, colonial settlers, people like me, people like you guys, Lori anyway. Now, Russia, no, because you're not part of the West. You're not over in Russia. You're not like part of the British colonial oppressor class. This is all directed at countries like Canada, countries like Australia, where they're trying to suggest that these are countries occupied, that we have no legitimate government there. And I hear it here constantly. The government is not legitimate. It's a de facto government. And they don't have any jurisdiction. It's coming from a variety of corners politically, but it's culminating in this. And I've been talking about this for 2 years. It's all about UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of Rights for Indigenous Peoples. It's about Canada embracing that, and that's why we're in so much trouble here now as a result of that. These protests, they converge with First Nations protests for ongoing First Nations efforts to reassert control over more land claims here, and even reset everything so that basically there are people within the First Nations communities in Canada, for instance, and the United States who basically want to take over. They want all the land back, all of it. And that's where the whole idea that you're going to own nothing and be happy comes from. That's one way of looking at it, and that's what's in play here. And the people, the Palestinians, I've seen narratives out there that spin up justification for them even having First Nations rights here in North America, because they're viewed as sort of an indigenous peoples, where if you're a colonialist, if you're white, if your descendants are from Britain, part of the monarchy, you're not going to have anything. That's the way this is all supposed to play out. That's what this is about. It's this anti-colonial ideology, anti-colonial, anti-settler, anti-West, anti-monarchy, anti-US, anti-Canada, bring back Turtle Island. You know, this is what it's about. And it's scaring the living daylights out of me.
Well, you know what you are, and what you are, and you and me. We're all a bunch of white colonizers.
I am a.
You want me to say what? I'm a white colonizer.
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 We are white colonizers.
I am a white colonizer.
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 I am a white.
A white.
A white. A white. A white. A white. A white. A white.
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 A white.
I'm a white colonizer.
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 Colonialist. Colonialist, no?
I'm a white colonizer.
I am a white colonizer.
We are a white colonizers.
And that's a fact. You know, they're lying to you when they tell you that Israel is a white supremacist state, that white Ashkenazi Jews from Europe run everything. It's a big, fat lie, isn't it, Naomi?
Well, it is, but you know, I'm thinking about what Rick was saying. It is scary because what I see is there's two forms of fascism fighting against each other right now, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it. I don't, and I've kind of been thinking about this lately, that when it comes to the West, they're economically in trouble. And I feel like the powers that be think that the only way that they're going to get out of the mess that they've created is to have another global war so that they can wipe the slate clean. And so they want this shit to happen. It kind of makes me crazy. But when I started to think like that, that's why I moved to South Africa. I'm like, if there's going to be a global war, I want to be in the global South and in an area that won't suffer too greatly from nuclear fallout. So, yeah, I'm chicken shit. I'm too old to fight another war. So, but yeah, it is frightening, and I'm trying to convince my kids to get the hell out of North America right now.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Kevin, you're in a war zone. You're literally living in a war zone in this disputed territory where you've got, you know, missile attacks, rockets flying over your head. waking you up in the middle of the night as Russia and Ukraine fight over that disputed territory. What's that like? Because your option is to come back here. I doubt you want to.
After that video you played, I first have to state that I identify as a black woman. So,
what are your pronouns?
yeah, my pronouns are invisible, not here. So, I'm just looking for my check from San Francisco. Sorry. It's interesting for me because the whole idea of creating another world war is, who is looking to do this? Who's looking to cleanse the world and start over? I can't point my finger at Islam. We've got people living together here for, hundreds of years peacefully. Christian, Muslim, Islam, Chechens, I forget how many, nationalities live here. But what it really comes back to in the country of Russia and many of the Slavic nations is people have learned to live together. So where is all this unrest come? It's got to be stirred up from somewhere. Living in a war zone, we don't view it as a war zone where we are. Technically it is. It's within range of ATACMS missiles. But, we aren't affected by it too much. We have an occasional alert of drones overhead. We get the, standard Russian line of, everything was shot down. Same thing the Ukrainians say that they get taken to task for. Obviously everything didn't get shot down. They're very slow to admit what happens on a daily basis. So is it keeping people ignorant, or I don't know. You can lead ignorant people pretty easily. And
as we're seeing on the college campuses, like right now, you see the mindless way that they repeat after their leader. It's kind of spooky.
Yeah,
to me.
It is the exact same technique that has been used for years. As I was looking at this earlier, the Black Lives Matter movement. Same thing, started out peaceful. It got violent because people with money stirred things up. I saw one in Canada not too long ago. It was maybe 2019, 2020, where they had some protests and the police came in and arrested everyone, supposedly peaceful protests, but they arrested them based on preventing violence. So, it always seems to stem around one side stirring the pot and the other side saying, well, they were violent, no matter, Jack Wilson in the chat is saying Black Lives Matter was infiltrated. Well, so are the Palestinian protesters. So are, you look at protests all over the world over the last 20, 30 years. When was 1970? I guess it was longer than that. 50 years ago, same thing. It's people trying to change the way the world is today by eliminating entire races or entire religions or, entire thought processes.
And erasing a nation state, an established nation state like Israel, who, by the way, they didn't declare war on anybody on October 7th. Hamas invaded their country and killed their people, and they had to respond.
I'm going to have the same disagreement. I'm going to have the same disagreement with you that I had with Arkady. Let's dig a little deeper back than October 7th. What was Israel doing before that? What was Hamas doing before that?
They hadn't been. Israel didn't have anything to do with Gaza after 2005.
That's not true. Look at the West Bank settlers. They've been going in. This isn't just a Gaza issue. This is a Palestine issue.
Right.
Israel has been systematically driving the Palestinians out of what Israel views as their state, which they consider all of Gaza, the West Bank, from Lebanon down to Egypt. And the IDF forces have protected settlers. They've illegally imprisoned Palestinians. Now, on the other hand, it isn't just Hamas either. Palestinians in general, they've been allowed to work in Israel. They get passes to work in Israel, but they don't necessarily always behave well either. So who's really at fault? How far back do you go before history doesn't matter? And I think history always matters, but there's sin on both sides. Now, the thing I disagree with Israel is they're far more capable of wiping out another state. And Palestine is, a recognized state. They aren't a member of the UN, but they're a recognized state and they're wiping them out. And that's not right. Now, I'm not going to call them Nazis and genocidal maniacs, but, when you start advertising that land for sale already.
Naomi, your turn.
I don't know if I want to go there. I don't think that they're wiping them out. I think the numbers are disputable. The casualties were heavy in the first month or so, but since they started their ground offensive, it's been a lot lower. These are emotional issues, but even if you think the numbers are high, what does that mean? They shouldn't defend themselves at all? I mean, that's what I hear. No, yeah. Israel, that they should not be allowed to defend themselves just because they're more effective at defending their own people than the other side. I don't think that's right.
Should the Palestinians be able to defend themselves and their people?
If they
same situation.
If they stop bombing Israel, then Israel won't have to hit them back.
And if Israel quits killing and illegally imprisoning and Palestinians, it's the same thing on both sides. It's two factions that just can't get along. Rick, that looked like I have a thought on that.
That is about it. And I've said before, as much as history matters, I believe that at some point you have to let it go, or you're never going to be able to move forward. The most important thing, I would think, is let's get to a place of peace. There has to be, there is room someplace for everyone to make a better life. Focus on that. But a lot of these people just don't want to go there. They won't let go of the past, and they won't rest until one side or the other is destroyed.
One of our viewers has a question for you, Naomi. He's asked, what is so wrong about a one-state solution for Palestine and Israel with full equal rights for all its inhabitants. Heck, it could even merge with Jordan and become an even bigger power. What do you say, Naomi?
I mean, does whoever asks that realize that what they're asking for is what Netanyahu's party wants?
That's
for one
basic.
state.
I mean, if you're an Arab and you become a citizen of Israel, you've got equal rights. Is that correct?
Right. And
that's how I understand it.
That's what the right wing is asking for. So they're in agreement with Bibi Netanyahu and the right wing party. So I don't know what the problem is. Let Israel annex
I'm
the
sure
countries,
this person
and then there
will
you go.
be shocked to hear that because they're pro-Hamas. So
I actually
No, I mean
saw the
that
look on
question
Rick's
always
face.
kind of astounds me.
They can't get
That's
along when they're separated. How are they going to get along if they're living under one state?
Right.
They'll be at each other's throats constantly. That's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
And actually, Lori, the Arabs that take Israeli citizenship do not have equal rights.
That's not
They, well, they can still be prevented from working. They do not have voting rights.
That's not true.
So
that's not
how
true.
do you have one nation where some of the people have more rights than the other ones do?
When you say that they don't have voting rights, are you talking about the people the Arabs in the West Bank and Gaza don't have voting rights in Israel? Because of course they would not. You have to physically live in the state of Israel.
Okay, first, right now, you aren't going to get Israeli citizenship unless you're Jewish.
There's they have over 2 million Arab non-Jewish citizens in Israel.
That is correct.
Yes, they do, because
And Christians
up
as
until
well.
now they could become, but they do not have voting rights. They cannot vote in the government elections.
Yes, they do.
That's not true.
Mm-mm.
I'm sorry, Kev, but you're wrong. They serve in the Knesset. They serve on the Supreme Court. They have the same rights as everybody else once they take full Israeli citizenship. And no, they don't have to convert to Judaism, and they're not forced to serve in the IDF either.
You know,
They're excused from mandatory military service. If you have a source for that, bring it.
My good friend Andrew Napolitano, as a Christian, was not allowed to buy a house in Israel.
Where
for
though?
exactly
Because
this reason.
no, there are a lot of
depends on
places
where.
in Israel that nobody is allowed to buy a house.
Right.
Not the Christians, not the Arabs, not the Muslims. That nobody's allowed to buy a house in a lot of places in Israel.
And there's a lot of places in Israel where Israelis can buy houses or apartments or land, and non-Jews cannot.
That's not true.
Oh, man. You've been watching a lot of Russian propaganda, Kev.
Don't accuse
watching
me
a
of
lot of
propaganda
RT, aren't you,
stuff.
buddy?
I know that area a whole lot deeper than you do, Lori.
I'm not so sure. I do study history for a living. That's what
I
do.
will find this information for you.
That's okay. The propaganda is strong, brother, and I'm not blaming you if you get some facts wrong. But those,
With the way that they
those
write
statements
things,
are
like they'll
just not
talk about-
supported by evidence.
It's the
Sorry?
way that they write things, and it's the way that they present these things in these articles. Like they'll talk about how the Palestinians don't have equal rights,
Yeah.
but they're not talking about citizens.
Citizens.
They're talking about
Right.
Palestinian citizens
Right.
who have residency, in Israel, or who have day passes or whatever. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, they're not going to have equal rights. They're not citizens,
Exactly.
but they
Exactly.
present them as if they're citizens.
And in defense of Kevin, I have seen reports reflecting exactly what he's saying, and so I understand exactly where he's getting
Oh, I've
the
seen the
information.
reports, but they're just not true.
So I understand. Yeah.
There are a lot of reports to that effect, but they're just simply not supported by facts.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think Naomi is actually absolutely right, and so, yeah, I think that's a little bit more clarification, but
They they have the right to vote. That does not necessarily mean they're allowed to vote. You know, let's go back to the original topic here. Let me finish my thought. Let's go back to the original topic here. Arresting Palestinian protesters.
Right.
It's their right by the U.S. Constitution to express free speech. However, what about the what do they call them? The it's the law where it's actually illegal in the United States to protest Israeli products, and technically the law is written in such a way that you can be arrested for bad-mouthing Israel. I'll have to look that up.
I've never heard of anyone ever actually being arrested, though, for speaking out against Israel in the United States. I know these laws exist, but I've never actually seen them enforced, you know?
So what are they arresting peaceful protesters against Israel for?
Peaceful is the key word. Let me
They're
ask
arresting
you if
a
you
lot
think...
of peaceful protesters, not just violent ones.
That is true. In fact, I'll show you a clip here from Denver. This was yesterday afternoon, I believe. It was yesterday or today. There's a big protest going on in Denver, Colorado on the Aurora campus, and they arrested, I think, 40 or 50 people.
This is breaking news on Fox 31 Denver.
Good afternoon. I'm Matt Morrow. We interrupt your regular programming right now for breaking news out of Denver as police and some protesters are clashing right here on the Auraria campus. Sky Fox live over the scene. We've been telling you about what is going on for the last day. And in the last, half hour or so, things have intensified even more. So here's what you're looking at. Sky Fox over the scene. Denver police and Denver sheriff's deputies now out there. They're the ones dressed in all black. Most of the officers have helmets on the ground surrounding them, and in the middle were demonstrators or ralliers. You may call them protesters. They were rallying for an end to the war in Gaza with Israel. They've been out there for about the last day or so. And then about noon, so a little more than an hour and a half ago, Denver police and the investigators who were out there told most of the protesters you had to go ahead and clear out. Apparently some didn't, and now some are getting arrested. I want to point out here, no violence, no tear gas. Doesn't look like anything's being thrown. The peaceful demonstrations here are continuing. But again, some people are getting arrested. We've seen a few people be handcuffed or basically have their hands zip tied and had to be carried out of the area. You see them right here talking with police. Again, this is going on downtown Denver.
This is breaking news on Fox 31 Denver.
Well, there you go.
There you go. And Lori,
there's
you know better than.
I apologize, man. It's storming
you-
like crazy here, so my internet, my camera's kind of cutting in and out. Sorry, guys.
So Lori, on propaganda and facts, you know better than to challenge me. So, from 2017, this is actually a report that was done by Haaretz that has been confirmed by the Knesset. The Interior Ministry verified that individuals that had been citizens for 20, 30, or 40 years, some of whom have served in the army, who have voted and paid their taxes, had clerks simply cancel their citizenship with a keystroke. As now permanent residents, they can vote in local elections but cannot run for office, vote in national elections, or run for the Knesset. They receive social benefits such as social insurance and national insurance payments, but cannot receive Israeli passports. If they are out of the country for a prolonged period of time, they also lose their permanent residency. And unlike citizens, they cannot transfer their status to their children. And the Knesset Interior and Environmental Committee held a discussion on this, and the Interior Ministry officials confirmed that such a policy exists. And they go on to say the big challenge in this is the democratic challenge, the need to persuade the world that among all the different alternatives, the alternative of democratic rights without the right to vote for the Knesset is not a bad alternative. So that's right from the Israelis themselves.
Well, Haaretz is a questionable source, but go ahead, Naomi.
I just asked ChatGPT.
It said that you said that their citizenships had been revoked.
Yes. And although Haaretz may be a questionable source, these statements come from the Knesset.
Right.
Right, but
so, of course, they're a questionable source too.
Yeah, but you're saying it still means that if you're citizens, if you're a citizen, you have equal rights. The question is about why their citizenships were revoked, though.
Right.
I mean,
and there's usually a reason.
It may have been
leaving
legitimate
the country for an extended period of time.
This is
or
in the United States, you cannot have your citizenship revoked.
Well, the United States is unique that way,
but it's rare.
Yeah,
Very
it's been
rare.
done, but yeah.
ChatGPT says yes, Palestinians who acquire Israeli citizenship are legally allowed to vote in Israeli elections. However, the process of acquiring Israeli citizenship for Palestinians can be complex and often contentious due to the political and territorial issues surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Very true.
And what does it have to say about removing their citizenship?
Well, how should I phrase that question to get a correct answer?
This would be the question, because we all know that AI is a wonderful source too. As long as you phrase the question correctly, you will get the answer you want.
So tell me how to phrase the question.
I'm not the chat GPT guy. You are.
Tell you what.
Oh, I am for the moment.
I'll let you guys look that up while I play you this clip. This is from today at the, I think it was University of Pennsylvania, since we're talking about encampments being broken up. And some of these, I think the folks are getting tired of it. And we are starting to see some universities remove these encampments. There's another one out at the University of California in Humboldt where they took over a building. But just today, police in riot gear cleared out an encampment on the campus of Northeastern in Boston. I think they arrested 102 protesters who refused to disperse, and they got minor charges: trespassing, disorderly conduct. I just want to bring you up to speed on everything that happened today. It was a very eventful Saturday around the United States.
The eruption of pro-Palestinian protests across college campuses. Police detained about 100 people at Northeastern University in Boston on Friday, clearing what they called an unauthorized encampment. And in a statement earlier today, Northeastern officials said they believed professional organizers had joined the ranks of student protesters. Administrators at Cal Poly Humboldt say they are closing campus for the remainder of the semester due to the continued occupation of 2 buildings. We've seen similar scenes across the country as demonstrators demand an end to the war in Gaza and call on universities to divest funding in various movements. University officials say reports of anti-Semitism and vandalism on campus could not be tolerated. And many Jewish students say they don't feel safe at their schools.
So what happened in there was that one cop stood up and said, "Ma'am, you need to step back. You need to step back." And here I am now, not just professor, but human being, watching this child being pummeled. I said no, and I stood there, but I stood in a way that was non-confrontational, just stood there, and then I'm arrested.
And Frederica, some of the professors and students who participated in the protest differ greatly from administrators. When you ask them what happened Thursday, they say it was mostly students and people affiliated with the university. But President Femby said in a statement that some were highly organized outside protesters who arrived on campus in vans constructed an encampment. In a statement, he also said that he is not going to tolerate any violence, any disruption of activities here on campus. Fred, back to you.
All right, Rafael Romo in Atlanta, Polo Sandoval in New York. Thank you so much. We'll check back with you.
Oh, sorry, this storm is crazy. I may have to duck out and get to my shelter in a moment. We do have tornadoes moving into the Oklahoma City area. But I just wanted to say, before I run for the for the basement, the professor there at Emory that you saw being arrested, Noelle McAfee, what CNN didn't tell you is that she is a professor of Marxism. That's literally what she teaches. So that's the commie professor. Okay, guys, I'm going to run for my basement. Whoa, that was a big strike of lightning. I got to go. I'll be back as soon as we get the all clear. You guys enjoy the conversation. I'll be back.
We'll see you later.
Okay. Well, we're on our own, I guess. Maybe for the duration. I hope she's okay. Any thoughts on what you saw there, Naomi?
I really couldn't see it. I don't know what happened. It was just, yeah.
Yeah,
Picture froze on me.
Another protest, another college professor.
Another arrest, yeah.
Another arrest, another one.
Is that the woman who admitted that she hit the police officer?
Well, she said she stood there in a non-confrontational way, but now, in my view, these protests, reporting on them, it really doesn't get to the core of the real issue. This is all theater. This is all a lot, useful idiots in some cases, pawns, people being directed to go and participate, young people who are there without really understanding why they're there. It doesn't really give you a true reflection of what the issues are or even where the country is at. It's designed to, it's a tool, I think, Kevin, and maybe you can provide more insight on how these kinds of protests are actually used to fuel these issues.
Well, I guess about the only thing I can say about how they're fueled is it tends to be outside money. We talked about George Soros. Reality is a lot of the money behind such protests are intelligence money, whether it's U.S. intelligence, Canadian, British, whatever. It's very similar to hey, I'll bring it home, like Maidan in 2014 in Ukraine. I was there the end of 2013, the start of 2014, and they were peaceful protests at first, but you had Victoria Nuland coming in, and to get bigger numbers out, they used $500 US, and they would pay a college student to come to Kiev and protest. And my own brother-in-law was paid $500 US to go to Kiev and protest. Now, you get all these students who can be swayed by, a few biscuits and a little bit of cash in one place, and college students aren't always the brightest bulbs in the box. And now you bring in some outside forces that want to aggravate matters, and you have the same claims that Kent State had, some of these Palestinian protesters have, is, gee, we weren't violent. But you've got the rumors of snipers, people throwing rocks and bottles. And often you do have people throwing rocks and bottles. I don't remember which university it was, but they dug into this from Friday and found out that the aggressors actually weren't even students. So, this is how stuff just gets way out of hand.
Well, here in Canada, we just went through a couple of weeks of an inquiry into foreign interference in our political processes, our elections,
Really?
and our even our protests. And so there was a lot of testimony and evidence presented, intelligence information was presented as evidence, and so through that we've seen testimony and information showing that we have outside countries influencing protests like this, directing the way people vote. But because we're talking about these protests specifically, definitely in some outside influences there, even with the protests that we're seeing right now, not just the pro-Palestinian protests, but all kinds of other protests as well. And it looks like, there's some Iranian influence here as well. So I think all countries are engaging in this kind of activity, whether it's the U.S. or Britain or, Russia, China,
Sure.
And
All
here,
these countries do it to each other.
yeah, absolutely. Like here in Canada, we're seeing China trying to exert influence in a variety of ways, and there's a paper trail on that stuff. And a week and a half ago, I was able to show an actual leaked document between two Iranian generals talking about exactly this, the information war and what they were doing in this regard. So they're definitely involved, and I don't think that should surprise anyone, because I think all the governments in one way or another are involved in this stuff.
Yeah. It comes back to, it's all about money and power, political interest. It's no different than any other conflict going on in the world right now. It's all political interest. They put out the propaganda saying this is the reason we support this, and when you dig into it, it's the same foundation on all of it.
Yes. And Naomi, anything to add?
I think that the people who are pulling the strings are sadistic. And that there's no rational reason for anything that's happening. So yeah, I'm just perplexed. I hate that I see no solution to any of this. I hate that.
Yeah, it is frustrating. And as I say, when I say that these protests don't appear to be, I don't think focusing on the protests helps us get to a greater understanding of the issues, because I don't think even what's happening in Gaza is at the core of it either. It's like this is where it started, but this is global in nature. This is playing out right here in North America. The protests are a symptom of that, or an example of that. But I think this whole Turtle Island, returning land, this overarching goal of decolonizing Western society, I think that's sort of the overarching thing going on here. Thoughts?
I keep thinking that, the CIA is behind a lot of things. But I don't want to think that it's just the CIA, okay? I mean, I know that they support the jihadists in the Middle East. And I know that there was a testimony a few months ago where one of the people testifying said that he tried to bring up the fact that the Hamas and the PFLP and the Palestinian terrorists, whatever, were behind a lot of these influence ops in the universities. And he was told by officials that these groups are untouchable because Hamas is a CIA asset. Okay? Because they're supposedly helping them fight the war against ISIS. but it's so self-defeating. Like it doesn't make any sense anymore. Why are you going to support them when?
Because these governments will use these groups as proxies when convenient, and then disaffiliate when they're done. And all these governments do. You can find linkages between Hamas and Russia too. There's a lot of information to suggest that they're providing arms to Hamas. And even if it's not direct, you see the alliances that have been formed as a result of these most recent conflicts, where you have Russia aligned with Iran, and Iran is supporting Hamas, and that much is very, very clear, right? And then you've got additional alliances taking form around that, and then the United States is in there, and they've been connected to all these terrorist groups at one point or another. Whether they created them or not is maybe a subject for another discussion more in depth. But over here they want to fight these guys, so they arm this group so that they go fight that group over there to try to manipulate things. But then when that's done, they kind of pull back, or they leave all these weapons in Afghanistan, and you could say that that was intentional when they pulled out. So you can look at these things in a lot of different ways, and I don't think there's any doubt that these major powers just use these people to fight their battles so that they don't have to. Kevin?
Well, why would I want to go fight my battle if I can pay people to do it?
Well, right. So that's exactly what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it becomes very, very inconvenient when that information becomes public, right? Because it's like, well, over here they were in with ISIS, and then over there they were with Hamas, and now they're not. Now the other guys are with those guys, and it doesn't make sense to people, but these alliances shift over time.
And everybody's aware of all of it, but it's just like they just black it out and just create these fake realities that make sense to them, because none of it makes sense.
But there's another side to this, and that's the groups that are engaged in the fighting too, because they're taking the money, they're taking the arms, and they're committing these acts, and they should be held accountable too. There's a lot of evil all the way around.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying earlier. I don't want to just blame the CIA. These jihadist groups have a mind of their own. They take the money, but they have their own goals, and they are evil. And being here in Africa, I really want to hold them accountable for the crap that they do. It's terrible what's happening in Africa right now. Terrible.
And after they're done doing the dirty deeds for the CIA or the FSB or Mossad or whoever they're working for on Tuesday, on Thursday they turn around and kill the guys that they were working with 2 days ago too, right? So it's a nasty, nasty business. No honor among thieves, they say, right?
Yeah. Today, and then tomorrow there's honor between different thieves.
Yeah. Different alliances.
I just want people to wake up. That's all. That's what we're here for, right? Trying to help people wake up and try to figure this shit out. Quit swallowing lies and fake realities and playing the game. Yeah. Yep. So one of the things that I'm worried about, when 9/11 happened, it's come out. The CIA, I don't want to say they orchestrated it or were behind it, but they knew it was going to happen and they let it happen. Okay.
Well, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But, as a result of that, they were able to expand and strengthen the security state. And I'm kind of wondering if the same, with all these protests that are going on in America right now, that they're gonna have these huge crackdowns, and they're gonna expand it even more, because of the potential for all these domestic terrorist groups coming up in the United States. So the conspiracy theory part of my mind is wondering if they're letting all of this happen so that they can expand the security state.
I think it's a natural reaction of any nation state to respond with more authoritarian measures and even new legislation or laws whenever they see something that they perceive as a potential existential threat. So I don't think that's surprising in any way. But yeah, I think it is a little paranoid to think that, you know, the governments do this on purpose so they can do that stuff. I mean, I like to deal in facts and not theories or conspiracy theories. It's a natural reaction.
Theory.
And it's I think a tool used by one country against another, especially against the United States, to push them to a point where it's like you force a reaction so that you can then point the finger at them and say, see, they're not free at all. They don't believe in freedom. They just crack down on these people. It's the classic, martyr strategy with these protests even, right? It's like you have people show up at the protest, and what's their real objective? It's not just to protest, it's actually to confront authority and get arrested. And as you're arrested, then you pretend you're the victim. But you went there to get arrested. So there's that aspect to it. And when you're dealing with Hamas and when you're dealing with Islamic ideology, that's at the core of it all. It's martyrdom. So they use it as a tool. They
the political strategy.
It's a military strategy as well, where they will actually sacrifice their own people, put them in front, use their citizens as human shields. It's a known strategy, and then when they're killed, then they scream bloody murder and say that they're the victims. When in reality, it's an aggressive, offensive move, but it's perceived as, and even it appears to be entirely victimization with no defense. In reality, it's an offensive move. So it becomes pretty hard for people to understand. And deception is also at the core of Islamic ideology. It's and here in the West, we don't understand that. And they, especially since the 70s, when the Islamists, the leaders of the movement, they really justified it more at that point. They gave it their blessing so that it could be used more as a tool. That's why starting in the 70s, you began to see more and more and more of these terrorist attacks. Because
Red Army.
Yeah, because if you're because they view that as like the how shall I put this? It's a great honor, and it immediately gets you into heaven if you sacrifice yourself, right? In that way, for the greater good, for the collective. It's hard for us to understand it, but that's at the core of what they're doing. That's, I hate to say that to people, because people will sit there and I know that people don't want to see the children die, right? In Gaza, I don't either. That's why I think it was a mistake, huge mistake for Netanyahu to Israel to go in the heavy-handed way that they did. I said immediately, if they go in and do this, it's a trap. They want them to do this, and as soon as they do, they lose. You lose by winning, and you win by losing.
That's the trap of terrorism.
Yes, and of course
they do
that's
that. So it's
that's
just like
that's their most and it's their
no
that's
matter
their most
what
effective.
you do, it's going to be the wrong thing.
That's right. So the best thing to do sometimes is nothing.
Yeah.
And
do you think we would have
But
done
then that's
that
another
though,
trap.
after 9/11?
But that's another trap. They do nothing and let your own people get killed.
Yeah, or you do very, very little. You give like after Iran attacked Israel,
right.
You just
Israel's
give them a
response.
love tap. It's just like just give them the love tap so that like, and I don't mean a love in that sense, but Kevin, you know what I'm talking about, right? Just a very small response to say, hey, we can still touch you, but we're not going to go full scale, so that you satisfy the PR issue back home, but you don't escalate.
Yeah.
Well, I think that them putting boots on the ground was the right thing to do. When they did the ground incursion, they were able to lower the civilian casualties quite significantly. So I think that I'm for that. And that's what I actually advocated for the beginning. Like, they shouldn't be bombing. They shouldn't be doing these bombs that take out a lot of people. They should put boots on the ground, be willing to put their own soldiers in danger by, doing doing what they've been doing.
What have they achieved by doing any of this stuff in Gaza? What's been achieved? I'll tell you. Sorry, go ahead.
What's been achieved? They have destroyed the entire area. They killed a bunch of the IDF killed a bunch of Israeli citizens as well as Palestinians, but they have not achieved their main goal, which is eliminating Hamas. They haven't done anything to them.
I think that
what will happen? They will continue fighting. They will continue fighting back.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I do know, actually. I think what they've achieved is they've alienated much of the world. They've destroyed their image globally. They've backed themselves into a corner where they have very little, if any, support. The only country in the world now, as far as I'm seeing, well, not the only country, but they basically got the United States in their corner, and that's about it.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
I don't think they do. I don't think they do. I don't think Joe Biden is.
Well, I think you've got a pretty valid point there too, Lori. Like, I mean, I don't even know if they can count on the U.S. at this point because there's so much international pressure. So, what did they achieve by doing what they did? I think it was a trap, and he made a mistake.
But what has the U.S.
set
done?
The trap, and why? Who set that trap? And why?
If we say the CIA again, my head's going to explode because that's always the answer, and I just don't.
And they're the good guys. Yeah.
I think that the Islamists
do a thing like that.
No, I think the Islamists did it. I think that it was because Israel was the rapprochement that they were doing with the Arab nations, with the African nations, and with the South American nations was working really well, and they didn't want to see that happen.
It doesn't serve the interests of the United States to have Israel wiped off the map.
And what has the United States done against Israel? They've put out a few statements of shame on you, bad on you, don't do it again, but they continue to ship billions of dollars worth of equipment to them to
Only
continue
took 6
doing
months.
what they're doing.
Took them 6 damn months, though, to get it there and to get that aid package passed.
Well, do you think that they haven't been sending stuff anyway? Let's
there have been
look
some,
at.
Yeah, there have been some
No, I mean,
supplementals, just like they do with Ukraine.
They've been sending a lot of stuff. They've sent the Navy over to try to protect Israel. But reality, no different again than Ukraine. They've been talking about sending long-range ATACMS missiles when they get this funding passed. Yet they actually shipped these missiles to them a month and a half before the package was passed.
Yeah.
And they've been using these missiles for 6-8 months already. So all this funding bill for Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, all it was a giant campaign contribution for the current politicians in the United States. But since you brought Biden up, we have this.
Antisemitic protests, that's why I've set up a program to deal with that. I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians.
A lot of people are saying that is his very fine people on both sides moment. You know, is in the same way that Donald Trump was criticized for that, even though Trump went on to explain that he wasn't supporting white supremacists or neo-Nazis.
Yeah, and you can see right now that the president is kind of having a bipolar moment as it comes to the Israeli war effort in Gaza. On the one hand, we're now supporting with additional funding this very just war that the Israelis are fighting. At the same time, they're talking about issuing sanctions or withholding certain funds from units that are operating in the IDF, the very same army that we're looking to fund here. The president is trying to figure out how to walk a fine line.
I condemn.
Shit, I just got a tornado warning here. I gotta go again, guys. This is the second time. Bye again.
Bye.
So you ran the clip, so any elaboration, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, so you've got Biden saying, shame on both of you. You know, but they're shipping more weapons, more money, and you know, he can say, oh, you know, Israel should not do this to the Palestinians, but what's he doing for them other than dropping some boxes of aid out in the sea and you know, making them swim out after the boxes?
Yeah, well, he has to play both sides because you have a growing Muslim population and he needs those votes in places like Michigan.
Yep. So comes back to what you said earlier. It's all about the politics and the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't want the conflict to end. You know, they don't want peace. Israel, the Israel-Palestine conflict serves as an incubator for the terrorists that they use to destabilize the Middle East and Africa.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, again, it's the same thing they're doing with Taiwan and China. It's the same thing they're doing with Russia and Ukraine. You know, they want to keep the wars going.
This is such a depressing topic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
wartime economy is good.
But like you can't overlook the you know, the involvement of Iran here. You can't dismiss them at all. And I think that Russia's involvement is very complex as well. They have a very complicated relationship with Israel and
with terrorists.
Yes, absolutely they do. And they're the ones who got up, as much as they're, you know, they say that they're engaged in diplomacy. I watched them get up and walk out when it was Israel's turn to speak at the UN. So, you know, their alignment with Iran is very clear, and I would say even Hamas at this point. So
they're playing the politics in order to get the BRICS going.
Yeah.
You know, at the same time, they're not entirely burning bridges with Israel either. You know, they're pushing for the two-state solution.
So just like, you know, not like the United States, but they're also playing both sides, right?
Yep, saying that, you know, Israel is a legitimate state, and, you know, so they're not completely burning bridges. And they do have genuine concerns about terrorism. You know, in here in Africa, the only countries who are genuinely fighting against the Islamist insurgency, helping the African nations, are Russia and Israel. A lot of people don't know what Israel is doing up here. You know, so behind the scenes, they're working together against this. But in the UN and to the face of the world, you know, they're acting like they're against each other. It's just, I hate politics, you know, but they got to play it. They got to play it.
Yep.
Yeah. It gets messy and complicated.
You know, and most of Israel's dual citizens are Russian. So there's a lot of Russian voters in Israel that they're not going to want to alienate.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a majority, but there are a lot.
Yeah, very complicated stuff. And a lot going on behind the scenes that we're just not aware of. And we sit here and speculate on these things. And the truth is we don't know exactly what's going on with
like that tit for tat thing that Iran did with Pakistan, for example. I can imagine those guys calling each other on the phone saying, okay, you will strike the terrorists in our country, we'll strike the terrorists in your country, and then we'll be done. And the same kind of thing I think the United States tried to do with Iran, after they bombed that IRGC meeting next to the embassy. Israel did that. Okay, well, we'll let you go ahead and attack Israel, and that'll be that. Save face, etc. So lots of things going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they were all on the phone at the conference call, figuring out who was going to be allowed to do what. And Kevin, I mean, you said before that you thought that Iran could have hit Israel a lot harder than they did if they'd really wanted to, right?
Yeah, I think that was just a message as well. Too many people pushing on them, and we'll invade you, we want to wipe you out. United States, help us get rid of Iran. Let's do strikes against their embassies. Let's do strikes against their bases in other countries. And I think Iran just had enough and said, we're going to send a message. They have the ability to strike much, much harder. And, the IDF is a bunch of well-trained forces, but they would never survive an all-out attack by Iran without the backing of the West.
And we haven't seen, Iran, Israel hit each other since then. So where do you think this is going, Kevin?
Well, we did say Israel. We saw Israel hit Iran with 3 quadcopters, but I think.
Did we really though?
What's that?
I said I'm not so sure about that. I'm really confused about that whole situation.
Israel claims Israel claims that they hit the air base in Iran with ballistic missiles. Iran was exceptionally quick to show the air base with no damage, with dates, so that you knew it was current footage. And it has since been verified that it was some quadcopters that were shot down over, near the air base that had some small explosives on it. That, as opposed to, the missiles that were fired from Iran to Israel, where Israel said, we had no or very little damage. They did not, strike anything. They showed all this video of aircraft taken off from the air base. And then a couple of days later, the reports come out and you see holes in the tarmac, holes next to buildings. So they did strike it. So it comes back to the propaganda thing. Like Rick said, you had to have that initial message from Iran that says, we can reach out and touch someone. And Iran to Israel, and Israel had to come back and say, we're still here. We're still willing to come after you. And this is all this was political messaging. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere beyond that.
Do you know why Israel is still there, and why Iran's little love tap, all those hundreds of missiles they sent flying, didn't kill but one person, a poor well, actually no one died. There was a Arab Israeli citizen, a little girl who was injured. But the reason that all those people didn't die in those attacks is because of the Iron Dome. It's precisely because of American money that is helping Israel and helping Israelis stay alive. Do you think about how deadly that attack would have been had they not had the Iron Dome?
No, I see.
I don't know. It sounds
Russia-
like you're cheering for a bunch of Jews to get killed, Kevin. Tell me that's not true.
I'm not. I never said that. I'm just saying you're accusing me of propaganda with Israel. The Iron Dome did not do a whole lot in protecting them. This had
Did
Russian,
a hell of a lot.
This, let me finish my statement. It actually didn't. This had Russian intelligence fingerprints all over it. This was not necessarily an attack planned by Iran, but if you look at Russian strikes, they're very precise. They go to great lengths to not harm civilians. Iran did the same thing. I shared video with Rick. The missiles that Iran used actually evaded the Iron Dome missile system. If
Not
it
all
wasn't
of them.
for not all of them, because some of them struck the air bases that they targeted. So were
Exactly.
they targeting civilians? No, they were targeting the air base.
Well, then why
Now-
did they fly rockets over Jerusalem, for crying out loud?
It's a
That's
message.
a civilian area and a very densely populated
Oh.
one.
Why does Russia fly missiles over Moldova and Romania on the way to Ukraine? Because it's airspace.
These missiles were coming in pretty low, Kev.
They were not
Pretty
coming
low.
they were not coming into Jerusalem.
There's video.
Those missiles
of
those missiles hit
literally right over the dome of the rock.
flying over and targeting are two different things. I know the missiles they used, those were Russian technology. They got those missile targeting systems from Russia. That's why those missiles could evade Iron Dome missiles. A majority of what was shot down was actually shot down by Western forces.
Right.
Aircraft.
And a mighty assist from Jordan, by the way.
Well,
I did want to change the subject somewhat.
Jordan and Saudi Arabia.
And Saudi Arabia, yeah. I did want to update
And
our
using
viewers
Egyptian intelligence.
on the question that was raised earlier about the Israeli Arab citizenship being revoked. I've been researching that while I'm hiding from tornadoes in the basement. Last February of 2023, Israel passed a law to revoke the citizenship of Israeli Arabs convicted of terrorism and who get financial aid from the Palestinian Authority. You know, they have that pay-to-slave program. And your family gets well taken care of by the PA if you kill some Jews. So, yes, it does mean that some Palestinian terrorists who happen to be Israeli citizens did, in fact, get their residency rights stripped of them. A large majority of
You're talking about those terrorists, like the teenage kid who threw a rocket at an IDF soldier and was arrested and thrown in jail? Those terrorists?
I don't know any specific cases, Kevin. I do not. And you know, critics of that law, like yourself, say it's racist and it violates international law by rendering people stateless, even if they're terrorists. But we wouldn't want to render a terrorist stateless.
Well, but you're applying the terrorist. You're taking the Western viewpoint that all of these people were terrorists with absolutely zero proof. So I'm going to throw the same argument on you that you threw on me. I was wrong about the voting, but we also have Israel's land law. That stipulates that ownership of state lands can only be transferred between the government and quasi-government agencies like the Jewish National Fund. The Jewish National Fund only leases land to Jews. 93% of the land in Israel is state-owned. So, therefore, it denies ownership or land for housing, commercial, agricultural uses being used by Palestinians. So,
but it's state-owned land, so the state decides.
And
right?
and 93% of the land is state-owned. So a vast majority of the land.
Yeah, because it's a.
This is where most Jewish citizens get the land that they have their housing on. Is state-owned land.
Man, this storm is crazy. It keeps knocking my camera offline. I don't even know if you guys can still see me or hear me. We've got a lot of lightning around here, and it just keeps knocking me off the internet.
So I'm going to answer Jack here why I think the Russians were involved in the Iran strike on Israel. Jack, the reason I believe that is because it is typical Russian tactics. As Rick has said here a couple of times, they do support Iran heavily. Iran has taken a lot of flack for continuously supplying drones to Russia. They don't. They gave them the technology to build drones. And in exchange, Russia gave them the technology that are used on the Kinzhal missiles that allow them to evade anti-aircraft systems like the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is nothing but an interconnected Patriot missile system. And even in Ukraine, they are pretty useless against the Kinzhals, because those Kinzhals actually can detect a missile coming at them and they can evade it. So without eyes on it, like from an aircraft shooting it down with an air-to-air missile. But it's just an opinion. I don't know for a fact that the Russians were involved, but it is typical Russian attack technique. Target the air bases and strike a blow there. The drones were not aimed at hitting any civilian areas. It was just to overwhelm the air defenses and get them to fire off all those Iron Dome missiles. So that's why I think Russia probably had some input on planning.
I mean, it's pretty standard stuff, though.
It's not for Western countries. Western countries tend to be very Israel, October 10th-ish, go in heavy-handed and burn the earth to the ground. You look at the United States in Yugoslavia, Syria, Iraq. It's go in heavy-handed,
shock and
blow
awe.
the living, shock and awe, blow the living crap out of everything, and that is not what Iran did.
Well, yeah, I think that is different. However, I think that you do have to make a distinction between conventional warfare, urban warfare, and counterterrorism, counterinsurgency operations. They're all done differently.
And which
but what Iran did is pretty. What Iran did was pretty standard for conventional warfare. I mean, I wouldn't say that they're following direction from Russia.
It's
I don't think that's
conventional
evidence that Russia's involvement.
Yeah, it's conventional from the sense that it began being conventional when Russia went into Ukraine. We did not have drone warfare like this before that.
Exactly. And I know we're just about out of time, and I've got another round of tornadoes moving in. So before we go, I want to play a couple of clips, getting back to the topic at hand, which is the protests happening on college campuses around the world, but here in the United States. And, I think that criticism of the Israeli government and the way that Israel conducts their war is perfectly legitimate and not anti-Semitic. But there's no denying that a lot of the propaganda circulating is anti-Semitic in nature. And a lot of kids are taking it in on social media, on X, on TikTok and other platforms, and right there in the classroom, they're getting a pretty thorough indoctrination. And so you see stuff like this. I'm going to show you a quick clip. This happened at Yale University this week at one of the protests. Once again, a pro-Zionist protester was there with their Israeli flag, and they were surrounded by a group of pro-Palestine protesters. One Jewish lady was stabbed in the eye with a Palestinian flag, and this is the video of that incident.
Arrest is closed. Divest. Okay, so now there's a full wall. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest this closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest this closed. Divest.
See, I can't move forward.
We will not rest this closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest this closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest this closed. Divest. This closed. Divest. We will not rest this closed. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest this closed. Divest. Ow! You stop!
And that's where the video cuts. You can hear her going, ow, ow, you stabbed me in the eye. And you can see the flag coming at the camera. I've seen some interviews with that young lady since. Fortunately, she wasn't badly injured. Her eye looks like it's going to be okay. It was a superficial wound. But again, these protests are inching closer and closer to violence. They've, for the most part, remained mostly peaceful. But then you have moments like this. This was at Columbia.
I'll break your face. I'll break your face. I bet you. I'll break your face. I'll kill your ass. Yeah. You gotta go. With these. With these. You're provoking me. With these. Fuck out of here. They go over there. They go over there. Fuck out of here. Nah, they gotta go over there. Why he still over here? No, why is he still over here? But why is he still over here? Get an education. Suck like you white bastard. You white faggot. You're a white faggot. I will whoop your ass. When I catch you. When I catch you. Get your tweezers out. Catch you. Why would I catch you? Why would I catch you? Why would I catch you? I'm gonna catch you.
So, yeah, that's New York. And
we're back to the white colonists again.
Yeah, here we are.
Do you know the most violent incident that I've seen so far was
Did you notice
Colombian students getting triggered by Native Americans.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, there was a small Native American group that went to Colombia to counter protest against them, and one of them held up a sign saying, Hamas supporters are not welcome on native land. And the Hamas supporters beat them up. So, I mean, that's what triggered them.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I'm sure you saw the visit that the Speaker of the House did to Colombia on Friday, I believe it was. Several members of Congress were there to do a press conference, kind of standing up for Zionists, for Jews, for Israel on campus. And we played it last night on the show on Maverick News. It was like an 18-minute press conference, and the crowd was jeering and booing and chanting and cussing at him the whole time. I'd never seen a press conference quite like that, where the whole crowd just hated them. But after the press conference, once the Congress critters were evacuated to a safer space away from the mob, Representative Mike Lawler had these comments.
Every single one of these college and university presidents who refuse to take action should immediately resign in disgrace, and if they don't resign, their asses should be thrown out. I have never seen a more disgraceful act than what we are seeing on college campuses right now. I'm Irish Italian Catholic. I love this country. We are a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of many religions, many races, many ethnicities. Our country is the most free country in the world. And yet what we are seeing on these campuses is an absolute abomination. These children that are engaged in this anti-Semitic hate should be expelled immediately. Every last one of them. I've introduced 2 pieces of legislation to combat anti-Semitism. The Stop Anti-Semitism on College Campuses Act, which would defund every institution of higher learning of federal dollars if they promote or sanction anti-Semitic events like we are seeing right now at Columbia University. Every last federal dollar should be taken away, including student aid. These children are not entitled to it. It is a disgrace what is happening.
So, Naomi, I want to give you a closing comment on that. I think that I should pass the mic to you, even though you're not here in the United States.
Before you do a closing statement, Lori, I want a clarification from Naomi. A minute ago, she said the Hamas supporters. I'm sure you probably meant the Palestinian supporters.
No. I mean Hamas supporters. They stand with Hamas.
Okay.
They say they stand with Hamas.
Some of them openly
they are
do.
in solidarity with Hamas.
Okay, I just wanted a clarification.
Some of them still have the pretense of, we're pro-Palestinian, but a lot of them are just a straight up pro-Hezbollah, pro-Hamas, pro-Houthis.
Can I share something with you before we get to the closing statement? And this might tie into what Naomi wants to say tonight. This is just how mindless things have become. And so let me share this with you.
Oh, yes.
Today what we're going to do is we're going to shout, Free Palestine. Can I hear that? Free Palestine! If you're a drag queen and you know it, shout, Free Palestine! If you're a drag queen and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're a drag queen and you know it, shout, Free Palestine! Excellent.
Madrasa schools in the United States. Nice.
Where'd you find video of me, Rick?
It just, I wonder if he could take the act to Gaza or try that out in Iran. See how that goes over. Anyway, I'll leave that with you tonight.
Kevin, I don't want to pick on you. We just met, and you don't know my personality, etc. But I think that a lot of people, and I was in this position back in 2014, are stuck in a sort of bubble, and they're not aware of just how radicalized some of these people are in America right now. And I'm not trying to put you down or anything, because I've thought the very same things that in this very same way that you're thinking about things right now. So
I'll stop you right now. You think you know how I think, but reality
well, I know what you said.
All I asked you for was a clarification on what you said.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've done propaganda for a living. I have my comments about you too, but I won't say them. So let's leave it at that and make the closing statement. I'm not going to start an argument here. I can hit mighty hard too.
Well, I mean, that's the point of Strange Bedfellows, as we talk things out in a civil way and not argue and fight like children.
I've repeated this several times, and I will repeat it again. I don't think there's anybody right in any of this. I do not take support for Palestinians as being support for Hamas. That's why I asked for that clarification. I do not take support for Jews and a Jewish nation state as support for the Zionists. I think they're both wrong. I understand why Russia went into Ukraine. That does not necessarily mean I think it was the best way to handle things. Where the conflict is gone, I don't believe has been handled well by the West in Ukraine either. So there's issues on both sides. And if we get in a show like this and we go down the path with, these guys are the sanctimonious good guys, and these guys are the bad guys, we aren't looking at both sides of the issue. And you have to look at both sides of the issue to learn how to use critical thinking and look at things.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. And Naomi, I want to go back to you for the last word. As someone who's from the United States, someone who's Jewish, someone who was on this show a few months ago saying that we could see a second Holocaust and it could start in New York City, I want to ask you, what do you think should be done about these protests? What would you like to see done? Do you think that legislation is the answer? Do you think that it comes from the university level? Would getting another president, if the president resigns, does that fix it? I mean, if anything, what can be done about it? What would you like to see done?
I think they just need to enforce the law. And just enforce the laws that we have.
Right.
And do, that's it.
Right.
Arrest people for trespassing, let people speak, arrest people if they hurt other people. I mean, that's it. But they're not doing that. So.
And there's also the federal law, the 1964 Civil Rights Act is being violated every day on our college campuses, left and right.
Conspiracy against rights is a law that I would like to see enforced. I think that would solve a lot of America's problems.
Do you think they should call up the National Guard to restore order on the campus?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't think that things like what's going on at Columbia is happening at all the universities.
Right.
That is the most extreme stuff is happening there.
Agreed.
But I don't know about the National Guard. I don't want another Kent State, and I think the protesters do want another Kent State, but I wouldn't like to see that. No. I do want to say one thing. I mean, you played the video, but here on my end, it didn't come through. I just got a frozen picture on that, but I did want to say that back in the interwar period and World War II, Bolshevism was used as a pretext for murdering a lot of Jews, and today Zionism is being used as a pretext for it. So I think that maybe there needs to be a little awareness about that.
That's a great point.
So
great point. There was always, that's some kind of political cover, a political justification. Like, we're not just singling them out to murder them because they're Jews. I mean, that's what the Nazis said. They said, well, we're going after them because they're communists. They're going after them because it's Moscow. And now it's the Zionists. It's the same old anti-Semitic playbook, if you ask me.
There's no justification for killing civilians.
Right, on either side. Rick, your last word? What you got?
I don't know where it's going. It just doesn't look good. It feels like things are just going to get worse, and I'm very worried about it.
Yep.
That's about
and
it.
And Kevin, not even out yet.
Yeah, and I appreciate what Kevin said too, because we do have to look at both sides of this, and I think that's exactly right.
Well, I thought that's why this would be a good panel tonight. I wanted to bring some balance to this, and I wanted to get the perspective of people who live all around the world, Jew, non-Jew, Christian, atheist, whatever the hell you are. We should all have equal rights. We should all have, feel safe in public places. And we shouldn't hate on each other, especially over here in North America, where a Jew on a college campus has zero say in what the Israeli government does. And even if they support Israel, even if they have dual citizenship, which a lot of American Jews do, folks, don't hold them responsible for what Netanyahu's doing. And for God's sakes, don't hurt anybody out there just because they are a Zionist or a Jew. Remember, Zionists are human beings too. And on that note, I want to thank you all. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Naomi. Thanks, Rick. We are all human beings here, and we all